Blind, maimed, your so-called gods, all will be destroyed.
Introduced as a villainous warrior princess who sought to get to Hercules by seducing his close friend, Xena was not supposed to be on screen for more than a couple of episodes. However, the fans of Hercules, Legendary Journeys, loved the strong and capable warrior princess a lot, leading to her character taking a different route than originally planned. Her popularity led to her character being reformed, and eventually spawning a very own spin-off series known as Xena Warrior Princess. Throughout her adventures and misadventures, Xena faced off against quite a few villains, and as a fan, it was glorious to see her defeat them with her wit and strength. But out of the several villains that she faced off against in the 6 seasons of the show, there were some that were rather powerful. In this video, we have handpicked 15 of the most powerful villains. If you are curious about our selections, then stay tuned as we look into each character and their fight with Xena.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Kalisto Sira is the most iconic and notable villain of both Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules Legendary Journeys. She was a ruthless and vengeful warlord whom Xena and Hercules ran into several times. Despite how far her actions went, Kalisto's rage towards Xena was sort of justified. When Kalisto was a young girl, she had to witness the gruesome murder of her entire family at the hands of a warlord who had raided her village. That warlord, as you have guessed by now, happened to be Xena. Witnessing the horrifying murders of her parents and her sibling took a toll on Kalisto's mental state. She suffered from borderline personality disorder, which was very clear from her behavior. Although she was an extremely skilled fighter who could easily go toe-to-toe with Xena when it came to their combat skills, Kalisto's mental state always ended up being the reason for her defeat. Kalisto would often be blinded by uncontrollable rage. This rage, as expected, clouded her judgment quite a bit, giving Xena the upper hand in the fight. Whenever Kalisto had the chance to kill off Xena, she chose not to do so, simply because she wanted Xena to suffer. If that is not ruthlessness in character, then I do not know what is. But as we know, all's well that ends well. That was very true for Kalisto and Xena's antagonistic relationship. Kalisto was killed quite a few times by Xena's hand, which pushed her to do unthinkable things. She ate the golden apple, which gave her immortality. She drank ambrosia, which turned her into a goddess. And finally, when she was killed and sent to hell, she became an archdemon. Eventually, Kalisto was sent to heaven by Xena, which turned her into an angel, and then she was reincarnated as Eve, Xena's daughter. This was Kalisto's way of returning Xena to the love and peace that she had destroyed while she was alive. Caesar. If the name sounds familiar, then yes, we are talking about the same Caesar that you are thinking about. In Xena Warrior Princess, we had a character named Gaius Julius Caesar. He used to be the senator of Rome and later became the dictator, much like the historical figure that he is based on. Throughout the series, Caesar made it very clear that he was not too interested in being kind to Xena. He had only one goal, and that was to conquer her. Now, Xena, being a warlord, was not easy to defeat. No matter how many times Caesar tried, he was simply unable to get an upper hand against Xena. At one point, he even joined hands with Kalisto, Xena's sociopathic arch-nemesis, in the hopes that Kalisto would be able to defeat Xena on his behalf. This led to Xena being captured along with her friend and sidekick, Gabrielle. The two heroines were crucified, and considering that to be a big win, Caesar declared himself the Emperor of Rome. But that happiness and pride did not last for very long because, as we all know, he got stabbed to death by his senators, which included his close friend Brutus. Fun fact about this particular character, he was played by Carl Urban, who is currently playing a pivotal role in the series The Boys. It is very interesting seeing his early acting gigs, and I have to say, he did a marvelous job portraying such a prideful antagonist as Caesar. Dahak. When you have a story that follows the adventures of a warrior princess who may or may not be a demigoddess, there have to be supernatural elements in the story. One such formidable supernatural character in the show is Dahak. Dahak is the force of evil, the impulse of destruction, and overall, an ancient bad guy. We have seen him face off against both Xena and Hercules, but his true form was not seen often. When Iolaus was killed off, it was Dahak who possessed the dead body. Not only that, Dahak had impregnated Gabrielle when she was tricked into killing one of the members of his cult. See, the whole spiel of his cult was that they wanted to bring evil upon the earth, and Dahak, the force of evil, was going to be the one to bring it through them. When Gabrielle was impregnated, she gave birth to Hope, who, unlike her name suggests, was the harbinger of evil. Dahak is a primitive entity, making him older than the humans, gods, and even titans. So, his powers vastly exceed that of the gods that we all know about. He can easily dampen the powers of any god on Earth and even, on occasion, kill them if he feels like it. His powers make him a unique adversary to go against.
The child.
Hope, Xena, Warrior Princess, was a project that catapulted Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor into the limelight. Renee O'Connor played the diabolical demigoddess Hope, the daughter of Gabrielle and Dahak. When Gabrielle infiltrated Dahak's cult, she was tricked into killing a member, as we mentioned before. When she killed the member, she lost the blood innocence that she previously had. This innocence was protecting her from the evil forces of Dahak, and with that gone, it was free real estate for the ancient force of evil. Dahak forcibly impregnated Gabrielle, and soon enough, Hope was born. She grew at a rapid pace, and it was very clear that Hope knew that she would be the one to bring destruction and death wherever she went. So, what was the first thing that she did to make this clear? She brought Kalisto back, obviously. After that, she basically arranged for a hit on Xena's son Solon. This put the two friends in a tough spot. Gabrielle was soon misunderstood by Xena, and the two friends ended up with quite a strained relationship, which the fans have dubbed as the Rift. Hope's powers as the conduit of Dahak made her almost on par with most gods. She gave Kalisto the power of teleportation simply because she could. She was a tough one to defeat because she was not hurt easily, thanks to her immortality. Although it was partial, this immortality of hers made her, understandably, a recurring character. Hope eventually died in the hands of her child, the Destroyer. She and Aries had planned to bring chaos by creating the Destroyers, the bringers of chaos. Only one was born, and after it was killed by Xena, in its dying breath, the Destroyer took its mother with it.
She wasn't invited to the party. She got involved of her own free will.
Aries. There are bountiful nods towards Greek mythology in the show, and Aries is another great example of that. Time and time again, wherever Aries was portrayed, be it in the actual mythological stories or in books based on mythology, such as Percy Jackson, Aries was never a good guy. That rings true even in this show. In Xena Warrior Princess, Aries, the god of war, is quite treacherous and feeds off of chaos like no one else. That is why when we saw Xena, the young girl whom he wanted to be murdered when she was 7, was blossoming into quite the brutal warlord, he was very happy about it. He even guided her to her signature weapon, the chakram. However, as we know, Xena became a good person soon after, and that did not make Aries very happy. Aries tried several times, in several ways, to lure Xena into the dark side, either by seducing her or by framing her for murder. However, none of his methods worked. He planned to create the Destroyers with Hope, but when the plan failed, he managed to talk his way into getting Gabrielle's soul to save her friend. Xena married Aries, exchanging her soul for her friend's. But before Aries could rejoice in that, he was fooled by Xena, who took the marriage contract and ran away. Throughout the runtime of the series, Aries never manages to corner Xena the way he wants to. Even the last time we see the two face off, Xena manages to thwart the god of war easily by tricking him into destroying the marriage contract himself. Going up against a god is no easy task, and having Xena overcome every hurdle that Aries puts in her path goes to show how resilient she truly is. Mephistopheles. Xena is a force of nature, and there are several people out to get her. One such character happened to be the king of hell, Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles saw potential in Xena and thought that if she were too peaceful under his guidance, he would get a shot at resurrection, which makes sense in a twisted way. But he went about the whole business in the most terrible way possible. He employed Kalisto to kill Julius Caesar, as killing him would result in Xena never straying from her path of good. But as we know, Kalisto did not end up killing Caesar, and Xena happened to get crucified. As a result of this, when Kalisto came back to him, he turned her into an archdemon. He silently stood by and watched as a demonic Xena tried the gates of heaven and failed. It was rather unclear what his plans were by this point, but when he released evil spirits into Cyrene's tavern, his intentions were made clear. The people of Amphipolis were desperate to get rid of the spirits, and they burned Cyrene alive on a stake, thinking that would do the trick. When Xena woke up from her 25 years of sleep and found out her mother's fate, she swore revenge upon the king of hell. Eve, her daughter, willingly split a drop of blood to summon Mephistopheles on earth, as he couldn't be defeated in hell or in the spirit realm. Finally, Xena and Mephistopheles faced off, and you guessed it, Xena won. But at what cost? Killing the reigning king of hell made you the rightful owner of the throne of hell. This was definitely not on her itinerary for the year. So Xena ended up tricking an archangel, Lucifer, into taking her place and becoming the king of hell. While we do not know if Mephistopheles was a good king, what we do know is that as a villain, he was terrifying. The thought of a demon who is almost on par with the gods when it comes to his powers, just sitting there and waiting for you to stray a bit further from the light so that he can use you sounds terrifying. Alti. Who would have thought that in a story following a warrior princess, there would be a shaman hunting her down at every step? Well, I, for one, did not see that coming. Alti, the ex-Amazon turned shaman, became one of the more prominent villains in the show sooner than expected. Played by the amazing Claire Stansfield, she is an amazing villainess. The way she tricked Xena into helping her gain the vast powers that she had was such a devious ploy, and it was very satisfying to see it unfold on screen. She tricked Xena into doing her bidding, which included waging war on the northern Amazon tribe, as well as getting the Ixian stone, which possessed great evil power. Once she had the power, though, she quickly turned on Xena, which was expected. She repeatedly brought Xena into the spiritual realm, where she tried to kill her but failed. She was also seen using her shaman powers, forcing Xena and Gabrielle to feel the pain of their predetermined death over and over again whenever she wanted. Alti brought a layer of psychological and physical torture with her shaman powers that were really unexpected, and that earned her this well-deserved spot in our list, in my opinion.
Eve. The Amazons I captured, I sold them.
Eve. You could be wondering why we added Eve to our list, and that would be perfectly valid. After all, Eve is the daughter of Xena, the messenger of Elijah's. How could she be a villain? Well, there is some story to that. As you know, when Xena was pregnant, she got word of the prophecy that her child would bring an end to the Olympians. This led to several gods, and I mean several, attacking Xena and her friends in order to kill Eve. Hercules killed Zeus in order to save Eve. After Eve was born, Xena gave Eve to Octavius, her old friend. Once she knew Eve was safe, Xena and Gabrielle faked their deaths with Celesta's tears, hoping the Olympians would stop chasing after them. However, Aries, who genuinely believed that the heroines were dead, put their bodies in a tomb with below freezing temperatures, where the two heroines spent 25 years. In the meantime, Octavius had turned Eve into the best and most brutal warrior of Rome, going by the name Livia. Like Livia, Eve was extremely hostile and ruthless. When Xena was finally out of her icy tomb, she tried to tell her daughter the truth, but Livia was not interested. She went on to massacre several people who believed in independence from the Olympian gods, leading to her quickly earning a spot on our list. She was feared all over the land, and even after she reformed, it took a while for the public to believe that Livia, the bitch of Rome, no longer wanted to hurt people, so you can imagine just how infamous she was. Yodoshi. Xena's adventures took her to several corners of the world, and Japan was one of those places that she had visited as a warlord. Back when she was venturing into Japan, she came across Akemi, the daughter of Lord Yodoshi. Xena found Akemi on her path, and she decided to take her back home, hoping she would get a ransom. What she did not know was that Akemi had no intention of going home. You see, Akemi's father, Yodoshi, had killed her mother, grandparents, and siblings. So when Xena brought her back to her hometown, Akemi disguised herself as a performer and killed her father as revenge. Yodoshi, who died with strong emotions, came back as the Demon Lord. If you are getting Ju-on, the Grudge vibes from this story, then you are not alone, because so do I. As his feelings of hatred were strong enough, he did not get a place in the underworld. So once he returned as Yokai Yodoshi, he captured the souls of 40,000 people who had tragically passed away in a fire that Xena accidentally started while fighting. Xena also ended up spilling Akemi's ashes during the fight, which led to Yodoshi getting their hands on his daughter's soul. Yodoshi spent the next 3 decades torturing the souls he was in charge of, including his daughters, until another soul showed up. It was Xena's. 30 years later, Xena had gone to Japan, hoping to right her wrongs. At her urging, a samurai called Morimoto killed her, sending her soul to the underworld so that she could fight with Yodoshi. The fight between them was epic, and it ended with Xena choosing to stay dead to set all 40,000 souls free. This was her ultimate redemption arc, and having it be via Yodoshi, a yokai with considerable mystical powers, was a great choice. Geron. Deep in Africa, there was a powerful and mysterious warlord named Geron. People knew him for his collection of wives and, of course, for his illustrious nature. Geron was feared, but nobody ever managed to hurt him because of his ingenious plan of having bodyguards act as his decoys. Nobody ever knew for sure who this titular warlord actually was, so he never got hurt whenever there was an attack. Clearly, he was quite clever, and from the way he treated people, he seemed to be the most respectful slave trader in the whole series. However, that does not mean he did not have flaws. Geron was the man responsible for raiding Gabrielle's village. He had raided her village and beheaded her parents right in front of her sister. As if that was not enough, Geron kidnapped Gabrielle's niece Sarah as well. When Gabrielle returned to her village and learned about the tragedy that had befallen her family in her absence from her sister Lila, she swore revenge. With Xena and Eve, Gabrielle traveled to the depths of North Africa and freed her niece. She also freed all the wives that Geron had captured over the years. To prevent anyone else from befalling the same fate as she did, Gabrielle tricked all of his bodyguards into attacking each other, leading to one of them fatally injuring Geron himself. Indrajit was the king of demons when you first saw him on screen. He looked like a typical Hindu Maharaja from his outfit, although he looks quite unassuming at first glance, so do not be fooled by him. He can perform unimaginable feats with his powers, even in this secondary form. His primary form is the demon form, which he does not revert to unless it is absolutely necessary. In this form, Indrajit has 4 extra arms and gains monstrous strength. In this form, he easily ripped out Xena's arms, leaving her crippled when they finally faced off. Xena, who was acting as Eli's defender, called upon Krishna, who regenerated her arms and granted her extra power, transforming her into the goddess Kali. In this form, Xena was able to defeat Indrajit, but it remains clear that without Krishna's help, Indrajit would have been the victor. He is an extremely strong opponent, and no other villain has left Xena a bloody mess like Indrajit.
And where is your Saba?
Caligula may not have had any supernatural powers which may have posed a threat to Xena, but that does not make him devoid of villainy. The debaucherous emperor of Rome was not the best fit for the throne. He was often entangled in scandals which were shameful for his people, but that never stopped him. Even as a young lad, Caligula had begun doing some pretty wild antics, the news of which eventually spread far and wide. However, when Caligula succeeded Tiberius on the throne, things took a turn for the worse. He did a lot of malicious things, but there was one particular event that broke the camel's back. He had captured Aphrodite, the goddess, and stripped her of her divinity. This led to Xena infiltrating his court. Once there, Xena talked Caligula into killing himself, ending his cruel reign over his people. It is better to have no emperor than to have one that does not care about their people. Although it was not shown in the series, Claudius was supposed to come in and pardon Xena and Gabrielle for tricking Caligula into killing himself. This would have explained why the Romans were always quick to defend Xena, but owing to the limited airtime, this episode was not seen. I personally feel like this scene would have cemented how terrible a ruler Caligula was, and why his death was such a remarkable moment for the Romans. Brutus. Is there anything more frightening than a friend who is simply waiting to stab you in the back? I do not think so, and I am sure Julius Caesar would agree. Brutus was always his good friend and right-hand man. Hence, when Brutus landed the killing blow on Emperor Caesar, it was quite horrifying from Julius's perspective. But for the people of Rome, Brutus was not the bad guy. He simply wanted to make the Roman Empire democratic, and that was not a bad thing. Then why is he on our list? Well, while Brutus's goal of a democratic Rome was great, the horror that he bestowed upon people as he tried to expand the Roman emperor was tragic. He killed off Cleopatra to gain control over Egypt, and his ruthlessness towards the Egyptians was noted. Xena and Gabrielle showed up to stop Brutus on his plans of expansion after they were resurrected. Gabrielle was the one to bring an end to his cruel invasion of Egypt by killing him in a battle between the fleets of Cleopatra and Mark Antony.
I demand
Bellarafon. In the world of Xena Warrior Princess, we got to see the beautiful and gorgeous Amazons, a group of female warriors. Bellarafon, the son of the goddess of the hunt, Artemis, harbored a deep resentment towards them. The Amazons seemingly stopped worshipping Artemis, effectively abandoning her, which was motivation enough for Bellarafon to plot revenge against them. As Amazon warriors had broken off into separate tribes, they had their own separate little traditions. However, since they used to be one big tribe, they shared a few big ceremonies which required each faction to participate. One such ceremony brought all the Amazonian tribes together in one place. Bellarafon knew about this gathering and used it to his advantage. His men interrupted the mustered Amazonians once the time was right and attacked them, Several were murdered in cold blood. Even more Amazonians were left injured. Bellarafon then kidnapped Varia, the queen of the tribe who was hosting the event. He brought her back to his fort, which he had booby-trapped all over to kill and capture any prospective rescuer. So far, he seemed like every other villain. However, what he did next was what earned him a spot on our list. Instead of waiting in his fort to capture more Amazons, Bellarafon set Varia free. He promised that he would never hurt another Amazon again if she would just do him one tiny favor. That favor was killing off Gabrielle, who was currently leading them. But obviously, if she killed Gabrielle, then the Amazon tribe would be weakened, and Bellarafon would be able to take control of them easily. Xena saw through this ploy of his and talked Varia out of killing Gabrielle. She made the queen understand that Bellarafon was going to hurt her and her people if she complied with his demands, and urged her to attack him alongside her. Bellarafon was sure that he would be invincible owing to his demigod nature. However, Xena was eventually able to overpower him, and after giving him a chance to walk away, she killed off his half-mortal side. Bellarafon shows what happens if a demigod chooses to use his powers to hurt people instead of helping them, and that undoubtedly makes him quite a menace. In China, there was this highly powerful explosive known as the black powder. Think of it like the better version of the Greek fire. This powder had been around for generations, and legend stated that the ingredients required to make it were so easily available that one could concoct it simply using the things found in a traditional Chinese kitchen. Now, by the time Hercules and Xena came around, the knowledge about this black powder was suppressed for generations. Most people did not know what this was, except a select few. Pao Su, a Chinese empress, got her hands on the recipe for the black powder. Using that, she waged a war against her sister, Ka'al Hassin. Although the battle was grueling, Pao Su lost the battle. But before she died, she shared the knowledge of this infamous black powder with Khan. Khan used the powder ruthlessly to expand his territory. He was a notorious and feared warlord. He even killed his siblings and resurrected them just to make sure they would aid him in his conquest. Eventually, Xena, who was given Lao Ma's powers, faced off against Khan and defeated him. He was turned into stone, which marked the end of his reign over China. He is a remarkable example of what power and greed might do to a person, which is a terrifying path in itself to undertake. Marvelous verdict. While this marks the end of our video, it does not mean that there aren't other villains who are remarkable in their own ways in the show Xena Warrior Princess. The show was fun but deep at the same time. Even the villains had complexities which almost made it easy to sympathize with their plight, even though you do not necessarily support them. My favorite villain out of the whole bunch has to be Kalisto. Although she looks rather petite, she is extremely strong. Her agility is off the charts, and sure, she does quite a few bad things throughout the show, but I have to say, she is very, very goal-oriented. If only her goal was something good instead of killing Xena, Kalisto would have been my favorite character in the whole series. Please let us know who your favorite villain from our list is in the comments down below and why.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.